Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Many years ago, Days of Wonder put out the most grandiose production of its era. It's designed by Bruno Cathala, and this is called Cleopatra, the Society of Architects. And Days of Wonder was essentially about a decade ahead of everybody else in their production qualities. And this game has been one of those games that's gone out of print for many years, and it's been a grail game for many people, meaning it's a game that you want, but it's really hard to obtain, and you end up spending exorbitant amount of money trying to buy them on the secondary market. Well, last year, Mojito Studios put together a Kickstarter for basically the second edition. It's a deluxe edition of this game, but it's not just a deluxe edition. They have done so much to change this game. So I've had a chance to sort of contact the publisher and print out some of my own little things and play the game mechanically how it is using the old components. I don't have the new version yet. They're on the way on the boat from the manufacturers in China at the time I make this video. So I don't have a production version with me, but I have played the new version with the old components. I've doctored things up, I've printed things out. And so in this video, I'm gonna show you the differences and tell you what I think about the game from a pure gameplay perspective, because obviously I don't have the components in the new one. And then later on, I'm gonna do a video of an overview and component show off and stuff once the game shows up. But for now, you can really know whether the game, is it a lot better, is it just the same thing? Let's find out. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, I don't have the new copy of the game here. Those are still shipping from the manufacturer. So what I did was I had basically doctored up some of the original cards, and I also printed out some homemade things that I got the graphics for the new game from the publisher to be able to try to play the new version. Now, in the original version, these are the original rules. One of the big changes is there were different amounts of resources depending on what they were. For example, there are 18 stone blocks, only 7 lapis. But in the new game, there's 11 of each. They flatten the deck out, so all the resources are even. So I went through and actually just sort of like with little stickies changed the resources so that there were 11 of each. And the reason why they did that is to really streamline the game, because in the original game, you had to use all sorts of different resources to do different things. Like the column walls, you needed a wood and a stone and an artisan. Sphinx, an artisan, a stone, and marble. 3 artisans, 2 marbles, 2 lapis for a throne and pedestal. All different resources, and so as you had cards in your hand, you're trying to figure out what you can build, what can you do, and it made the game harder for no reason other than just to make it more thematic as to what you're building. Where now in the new one, you simply build, to build any one of these 3 things, the Sphinx, the door frame, or the obelisk, you need 1, 2, or 3 artisans, and 2, 3, or 4 of the same resource. And it doesn't matter which one. That's why they flattened the deck and made it 11 of each. This makes the game so much easier to play, so much easier to plan. It's just so much more streamlined. And to do any of these, the column wall, the mosaics, or the pedestal and throne, you need 1, 2, or 3 artisans, and you need 2, 3, or 4 different cards. And so again, it makes it so much easier to see what you're going for, as opposed to picking out and looking little ones here and there. It just streamlined the game so much. Now in the regular game, when you're setting up the deck, essentially setting up 3 stalls of markets will come out, but the deck itself would have half the cards face down and half the cards face up. Well, in the new version, you actually use 2/3 of the card face up. So you get to see more things, and there's less randomness in the game. Now also there's a new board. This is just a printed piece of paper, but this is what it will look like, in the new game. And there's little tiles for different characters, and the actual market stalls sort of go in the bottom of this. So it's like one big board together, holding the markets and the new characters. Now the original game had different characters, and these are actually mixed into the normal deck. So when you were going for a market stall, sometimes you'd see them, sometimes you'd get them by accident because again, half the cards were face down. And they did different things, but in general, a lot of times you'd end up with cards that you had no use of using. The rules of some of these were very situational, and I felt like they didn't really do the game that much justice, even though it added a little bit of flavor to the game. But now you have 5 brand new characters on this board. There's none of them in the market, just resources. That streamlines the market, and you get these when you need them, but they cost different things. This one costs 3 points essentially. This one adds a corruption, 2 corruption, or 3 corruption. So if you want this one, you get to spend 2 corruption, you use its power, and then you put him to the end, and now he costs a lot because you just used it. And these characters actually do different things than all the ones in the original game, and it really streamlined it, made it so much better. And the abilities are just, they really allow for bigger turns, and they make the game faster and more interesting, definitely more exciting. Like this one, you can build for 2 less resources. This one, you get an extra 4 points every different place you build on that turn. This one, you can draw 4 cards from the top of the deck. This one is you can visit the quarry and get cards from the resource market that turn. This one is you can spend 2 less artisans when you build. All of these, and you can activate 1 of these per turn, and it doesn't count as your turn. So you're like activating an ability for a good planned out turn, and you're doing a lot of things, making things easier or getting more of things, and it really makes the game pick up steam and makes the pace of the game so much better. They also took the corrupted artisans out of the game. I didn't notice a big positive or negative against this, but since everything else they streamlined seems to make the game a lot better, I'm assuming this does too. I just can't correlate exactly what it did. Now there was a mechanism in the original game that when you visited a quarry and built something, you would roll a die, and if it had this, you'd put it here. If not, it would stay out here. And once this totally filled up, you essentially would have to, offer to the gods and bid a certain amount of points in order to not take corruption. Well, this has been replaced. You'll still do that, but you do it once per game. And essentially it happens when the queen gets from the 3rd to the 4th, meaning the 3rd thing has been completed. So, and that makes sense because as you roll the dice statistically, usually it would be about once per game anyways, and usually it would be around here statistically. So they just took it out because most of the time you'd forget to roll anyway. They also changed how a lot of these score, and again, it all makes the game faster, more fun, more streamlined, and kind of gets a snowball effect as to how things combine and tie in with each other. For example, the Sphinxes. You used to get 2 talents for the first Sphinx of its pair, and then 5. And so what would happen is you would get 2, someone would get 5, and everyone would kind of sort of hold off to get the one that's less points, and it would sort of stall the game and make it slower. Where here you get 3 points plus 1 that was already there. So as players build Sphinx, you're more incentivized to keep building them as opposed to stopping. Makes the game so much faster and so much more streamlined. Now the obelisks, you used to just get 12, right? And now you get 10 plus 2 for every Sphinx. So not only that, as these get built, you're more incentivized to do this, and it pushes the game to the end quicker. Also the throne and pedestal, 12 points. Where now you get 10 points plus 2 for every mosaic around it. Again, linking things together, and as one thing's done, it makes you want to do something else faster, pushing things, towards the end game faster. So in general, they've really done some surgery on this game and streamlined and made it so much more fun with bigger and exciting turns. Including the ending, which was a complaint of some people where if you had the most corruption at the end, you just couldn't win, you'd lose. Where now they took sort of what used to be the variant 2-player rules, which is you wouldn't just, not be able to win if you had the most. If you have 8 more or more than the person that had the least, then you're thrown to the allegation, can't win. So not if you have the most, you can still have the most and still win now, but you just can't have way too many more than the person who had the least. I liked this a lot better. It really cleaned up the end of the game. That's pretty much it for all the changes. Let's see what I thought on all these points. All right, let's talk about all of these differences, because this is not just a Band-Aid. They did surgery on this game and really made it brand new. So the first thing, the even amount of resource cards versus the different amount. That's really good because it allowed them to flatten the deck so you didn't have to worry about some of them were more scarce, some of them weren't. And what that really allowed them to do by flattening that deck is made the building a lot easier to see with having like kinds or different kind cards, not specific cards. Because in the older game, you're looking at your player aid, you're like, oh, I need this, this, and this for this, or I need 2 of these and 1 of these and 1 of these things for over here. And you look at this hand of cards that you have, and it's like, and it took too long to figure out what I should go for, what do I need, and it just was kind of fiddly. It was kind of clunky, but this game's an older game, and that's, things weren't as streamlined as they are today. This allowed it to be so easy. It's like, ooh, I either just need a bunch of the same or a bunch of the difference, and here it is, it's very clear. It's so much more streamlined to figure out what you need, what you're trying to get, what you're trying to go for. It just made it so much smoother. The gameplay is so much better just with this one change alone. The next one, 2/3 of the cards are face up instead of half of them. This is so much better because in the old game it's just like, well, half the cards I'm getting from the market stalls, basically, it's just random. And a lot of them are gonna have corruption, and I'm gonna have to either play them and get corruption or discard them and take corruption. It wasn't that good. But having 2/3 of the card face up, a lot less luck, and which basically means a lot less randomness. And that brings to the next point is they doubled that by you don't gain corruption when you're just carding down to 10 cards. Those two things work well together and it made the game, again, much more enjoyable. But the biggest change here that really makes this a game that is much different and much better in my opinion are all the new characters. Now, there's no characters in the deck anymore, but you hire them at the beginning of your turn in addition to your normal turn. This was so cool. It has one of those cool sliding markets, and it's like, well, I gotta pay a corruption, I'll get this guy, it'll go all the way back, and now it's really expensive for everybody else. And being able to do this in addition to your own turn is great, because number one, it freed up the market to have just the resources. So the market, going for the market was a lot more interesting, because it wasn't all mucked up with and clogged up with cards that you didn't really care about. Because I sort of said in the overview, is a lot of times you get stuck with these cards with abilities, and you really didn't need to use them, or you didn't want to use them, they just kind of clogged up your hand. But now, all the different abilities, they make so much more sense. Like visiting the market and the quarry at the same time allows you for big turns that are fulfilling. You go boom, 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 I get this big turn. Or building with 2 less resources. And this allows things to be moved faster. The game has a much better pace than before. There's no corrupted artisans, and there's no dice for offering the Great Priest just after the Queen goes over the 3rd line. So it's like that part, I almost always forgot, or not always, but many times on the game, forgot to roll those dice. And it's like, well, statistically it was here anyways, let's just do away with that mechanism. Again, streamlining it. I love how they changed the points. So it's like the points change for all the timing. So the timing of the Sphinx. So before it used to go like 5-2, 5-2, and after the 5 was built, everyone would just wait and wait for the next person to do it, wait for the next person to do it, and actually bogged the game down and slowed it down, where now you get more and more points as you do them. It does the opposite. It sped the game up, made it more streamlined. The obelisk, you get more points after the Sphinx. Again, it used to just be like, well, the same points all game long. Now it's like, no, as the Sphinx get built, these are going to be worth more. And so these things are working together now, and they're singing in harmony, and it makes the game, again, move faster and be more streamlined. Now, the throne, with more mosaics, now it used to just score one thing, and now you score more based upon how many mosaics are around it. Again, linking it together with something else that works well together. It's just the game is so much more well done than it used to be. It's much faster. It's much more streamlined. We played this back-to-back, a 3-player game with the original, and it was 75 minutes. And quite honestly, it felt clunky. It felt fiddly. It felt like a slog. It was not enjoyable to me. This is a game that I bought many years ago, and I've never really enjoyed it. It's come out from time to time because, again, it's got this novelty of this big, huge thing, and I'll play it, but it's never been something that's grabbed me. This new version took us 40 minutes. I mean, it's almost half the time. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because it was action-packed. It was tense. It had huge, exciting moments. Even watching other players have huge turns was exciting, using the different characters on the turn and doing different that. It's just a much better game now. The corruption ending, you no longer just lose if you have the most corruption. You need to have at least 8 or more than the person that had the least, kind of borrowing the rule from the 2-player variant from before. And that fixed the end game as well. I mean, there are so many changes in this game, and it went from a game that I was like, I would play it with you, but I would probably never suggest it. And I'd only play it because it looked so cool, not because I felt like it was a good game. And after playing this new version, I'm like, this game is what it always should have been now. And I'm playing it with the old components. I can't wait till the new game comes with all the amazing upgraded components and this better game and mechanisms. This is going to end up being a fantastic game that will be one that I'll recommend when people come over to play. Because not only is it going to look amazing, it's going to play amazing. It's really been brought up. Surgery's been done, and this is a fantastic. So if you are one of the ones that backed this, I can wholeheartedly say this is way better. It went from 1.0 to 5.0. That's how much better this game is. It went from one I didn't really care to play, barely ever wanted to play it, to something I'm going to be pulling off the shelf and asking others to play. That's the difference. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games by helping you find the next one you'll love. Lucky Duck Games has launched a brand new online shop and are offering you, my viewers, a special discount. During checkout, use promo code GameBoyGeek10 and you'll save 10% on the price of your games. On the Lucky Ducks game shop, you'll find exciting new releases such as Tang Garden, which I recently reviewed, and the link is below, and It's a Wonderful World, as well as award-winning games like Chronicles of Crime, which is one of my favorite cooperative games of all time, and Vikings Gone Wild. So why not visit LuckyDuckGames.com now and find something new to play?